Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for April 28th through May 4th. This week I DNF'd 1 book, I read 4 books, I watched 4 shows, I watched 4 movies, and I listened to 1 book. The super nerdy part of me is really happy that that's a palindrome, 14441. 2 of the things I read, or at least attempted to read in the case of the DNF this week, were for the Halfoweenathon. If you didn't see my TBR, I will link it up there, but spoilers, I only picked 2 things and I didn't read one of them. The one I didn't finish reading was called The Dark by David C. Cassidy. Everything I read about this was that it was super creepy and I wanted some creepiness in my life. It's about this little boy who's in an accident when he's 5 and his dad ends up dying, and then a couple of years later something creepy basically comes into their town and he starts seeing his dad again in this creepy place. And the thing about this book is I really enjoyed all of the horror aspects. I was enjoying getting into that genre again. I was liking that part of it. However, every single dude in this book spent way too much time looking at boobs, noticing boobs, thinking gross things about women, and I was just not about that life. Also, it's about 450 pages and I managed to get 20% through, and I just couldn't do another 80% of boobs, boobs, she boobed boobily down the stairs. So DNF. The thing I did finish for Halfoweenathon is 1408 by Stephen King. This is actually a short story. It's only 56 pages long, so if I had DNF'd this one, that would have been very sad. Also, I enjoyed this one significantly more. Although that's probably in part because there were no women for him to boob boobily about, which in itself is kind of a problem, but whatever, it's fine. This is the story of Mike Enslin. He makes his living by writing these books where he goes to different haunted locations, stays there for a night, and then writes about it. Currently, he's working on haunted hotel rooms, so he goes to the Dolphin Hotel, having heard that 1408 is hella haunted. However, he's not the type of person that actually believes in this stuff, he's just writing it because it sells, but 1408 is hella haunted. This one was pretty decent and I'm pretty sure I gave it a 4-star. To kind of cleanse my palate of the boobed boobily writing from The Dark, the next 3 things I read were pretty feminist comics. The first one was Lady Killer Volume 2. I haven't actually read Volume 1, but a coworker had picked this up as an interlibrary loan and she was returning it, and I just wanted to read it really quickly before it actually went back to its home library. But regardless, I got the gist of what was going on. Essentially, the main character in this graphic novel is a killer for hire, but she's like a 60s housewife on the outside of that. And if my library actually had these volumes and I didn't have to interlibrary loan them, I would probably tear through them quite quickly. My second graphic novel was for the Asianathon, and that was my lesbian experience with loneliness. This book actually ticks off 4 of the 5 challenges for Asianathon, so I wanted to get it done in case I messed up on any of the other challenges, because I have other books for that TBR. I will link that up above as well. But I didn't want to accidentally miss out on a challenge, especially when this is a month-long readathon and you would think that I would get all of the challenges done. But it turns out I have other things that I also need to read this month that I totally forgot about, so I'm feeling a little bit discombobulated. This is an autobiographical manga about this woman who has several mental health problems and also eventually came to terms with the fact that she's a lesbian, and then also eventually had her first sexual encounter with an escort. I didn't know a lot about this going into it, so it's a good idea to know that there is a ton of mental health rep in here, and that if any of that sounds like it could be triggering for you, because she does spend a significant amount of this time wishing she was dead, then tread lightly on that. The final graphic novel I read this week was Faith Dreamscape, and this was a compilation of 4 issues. I don't know if there's another volume of this coming out or anything like that, but this was a contained storyline. Essentially, this takes place after the last run of Faith comics that I read, where the police are convinced that she actually murdered somebody, so she's kind of keeping on the DL. But another Psyat finds her and needs her help, and she takes her to another Psyat. And something I love about these comics is they become the most ridiculous situations. And Faith is such a giant nerd that there are nerdy references just around the corner, and every time I get to one, I just giggle my ass off. So needless to say, I had a good time. On to what I watched this week. I watched the most recent episode of Game of Thrones. Wow. You guys know I don't like to do spoilers on this channel, so just wow is basically, I think, what anybody says after that episode. I also watched a few episodes of Survivor Season 19 and stayed current on 38. Because I'm watching the seasons at the same time, my brain is kind of mixing them together when I'm trying to think of any thoughts about them. I did, however, see a web exclusive from Exile Island where Reem and War Dog just get in a fight, and it was pretty entertaining. I also watched a few more episodes of Yuri on Ice, and I can't believe there are only like 12 episodes of this because it is so cute, it is so pure, It is so gay. I need those characters to get together properly. And I'm loving meeting the other figure skaters. I'm told that very soon we are going to meet a Canadian figure skater, and I'm also told that that Canadian figure skater is not stereotypically Canadian, which I'm looking forward to. Speaking of stereotypical Canadians, I know that the current season of this show has a very stereotypical Canadian entrance, but I haven't seen that season, so we're not going to talk about it. I finished the last half of the 7th season of RuPaul's Drag Race. The weird thing about this show is I usually go into the final 3 knowing how it's going to go down. We tend to have the one person where I'm like, if they win, I'm going to be very upset. We have the one person I want to win, and then we have the one person I think is going to win, even though I think that the person I want to win deserves it more. And this is exactly what happened with this season finale. I was quite shocked at who went home on the final 4 though, and want her dress. On to the movies I watched, the first one being 1408, because for Halfoweenathon you were meant to read a book and then watch the corresponding movie, so I did that. Thank you, library. I had seen the movie around the time it came out, but that was over a decade ago, so I was more than happy to watch it again. The interesting thing about this movie is obviously the source material is a 56-page short story, so they had to do more to make this a full-length movie, and they gave him a backstory, and you know, there was at least one woman in it, so that was nice. And I thought it was visually stunning. I also watched Endgame, and I went into it with absolutely 0 spoilers, so that's what I'm going to do for you. However, the person I saw it with knew 1 trigger warning ahead of time and was very appreciative of it, so I'm going to tell you that trigger warning. If you don't even want that 1 trigger warning, then just mute this video until I put my hand down. Trigger warning for major fat phobia. I also watched a total blast from the past that I had never seen before, and that's Heathers. What even is this movie? Obviously, I've seen people reference it many, many times before, but I had never gotten around to actually watching it, and what even is this movie? I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoy anything Winona Ryder's in, and I enjoy weird random crap, but holy crap. And the final movie I watched was Unicorn Store. I do this thing with a friend of mine where we will get some wine and we will watch a movie and we will talk to each other in the DMs of Twitter about it, because we are 3 time zones away and can't do it in person, which is really sad. We're also in different countries, so we have to pick something that's on Netflix for both of us, so picking a Netflix original is generally pretty helpful. I knew nothing about this going in, besides I saw that Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson were in a photo for it, and I went, yeah, I will watch whatever this is. And I was not disappointed. Brie Larson is amazing. I had no idea until the end when it said so that she directed it. I also had this thought about halfway through the movie that her dad looked a lot like really old Josh Lyman, and then realized that yes, that was actually Bradley Whitford. I've been rewatching The West Wing recently, and that was 20 years ago, so it makes total sense that Bradley Whitford looks like this at this point, but it wasn't until he actually started getting a lot of lines that I was like, oh yeah, that's totally Bradley Whitford. This movie is all about a very artistic woman that flunks out of art school, and to try to make her parents proud of her and basically get off her case, she gets a very corporate job. But then she also gets these invitations to go to a store. It is, you might have guessed, a unicorn store. She also meets this very pure, very sweet boy along the way, and can I just say how much I kind of fell in love with Virgil, because he was fucking adorable. If you haven't seen this movie already, I suggest it. And on to the book I listened to this week, that was Girl Stop Apologizing by Rachel Hollis. This came highly recommended by my friend Desiree from Libri Labra, who I will link down below, and I really ended up enjoying this one. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into going into it, but I assumed based on the title that it was something in the self-help genre, and that assumption is correct. This book was really about empowering women, and it really sounded like you just had a friend giving you really good advice the entire time you're listening to it. We all need that person in our ear from time to time telling us that the crappy things we're saying about or to ourselves is crap and you should just not. And I found a lot of the advice and the tone of the advice very, very helpful. I have classic seasonal affective disorder, so I feel like when it starts getting darker again, I'm going to re-listen to this book just to keep myself on the upbeat, because I've finally just grown into the time of year where I feel really good, and I'm doing other things to continue feeling really good, and I want those to continue through the next set of dark months. And I feel like this book will actually really help make that happen. This book also talks a lot about goal setting, and I decided during the course of the book to set a very specific goal, and it's one of those ones where I know there's a chance that it won't happen, but also working towards it is better than not working towards it. And even though I'm a little bit hesitant to mention it in case I completely fail, I also don't really care. A little while ago on book Twitter, there was this thing where everybody was talking about YA goes to prom and showing what you wore to grad or prom. And of course I tweeted at my friends at BookNetFest that like, maybe we should look into doing this. And they were like, yeah, this is already a thing we've always wanted to do. And I think it is actually going to happen in September. So I decided on May 1st that my goal was to fit back into my grad dress and take it with me to Orlando for BookNetFest. It definitely doesn't fit currently. I actually wore it in a video a little while ago, which I will link up above, but it was not done up in the back. Also, grad for me was 15 years ago, so if I don't fit back into it in the next 4 months, I'm not gonna be crushed about it, but I am taking better care of myself based on this goal, so I'm happy about it. For me, it's really important not to pick like a number on the scale or anything like that because I don't really care about those numbers. I'm just being much more intentional about what I eat, and I'm actually using my exercise bike as opposed to putting things on it and forgetting it exists. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye.